Okay, here is Chapter 7 in-class homework answers. I'll post these also for you, but let's kind of talk through each one here. For 711 through 714, they involve department cost allocations with 2 service departments and 2 production departments. And you can see that we've got 2 service departments, S1 and S2, the 2 productions, P1 and P2, and then basically what percent of service is provided to the other departments and what the total cost for the department is. And then for 711, the question is, what's the amount of service department cost allocated to P1 and P2 using the direct method? Okay, so the total cost allocated to P1 is 20 and to P2 is 30. And so in total that's 50. And up here you can see that the S1 and S2 in total is also 50. And so to do that, what we're doing down here, you can see is we are, you can see that for S1, service percent to production departments is 35% and 35%, and then allocation percent for the direct method is 50 and 50. So basically 35 plus 35 is 70, and then 35 over 70 is 50, and so the allocation amount is 30,000. So basically half goes to one production department, half goes to the other. For service 2, what you have is you've got $20,000 worth of service cost, and you can see that 20% goes to P1 and 60% goes to P2. The 20 and 60 up here, or the 20 and 60 down here, and then that 20 plus 60 is 80. So 20 over 80 is 25%, 60 over 80 is 75%. We're allocating $20,000, and so 25% of 20,000 is 5,000, 75% of 20,000 is 15,000. So 15 plus 5 is 20, 15 plus 15 is 30, and then we add the existing cost, and we get the total for production departments is the 120 and the 180. So that was the direct method. So basically then 712 is what's the total cost in P1 and P2, which is what we just got done calculating in 711. Then for 713, what we're doing is the step method. And so for 713 with the step method, of course it changes just a little bit, because instead of allocating just the service departments, we also have to take into account the production departments a little bit differently. And so we're going to allocate step 1, or service 1 I should say, gets allocated now 30, 35, and 35, which is, of course, we add those up, we get 100,000. And that is coming back up to the very first chart right here, 30, 35, 35 is where that came from. So we multiplied each of those percents by the total cost of 30, and we split that between 9, 10, 5, and 10, 5. And then service 2 is split, and we go with service 1 first because service 1's, partially because it's listed first, but also because service 1 had the more cost. And then for service 2, we just go back and we allocate service 2, coming down to 713, basically the 2060 again that we got done, that we used in the previous example. So the same data that we used right here, 2060 to give me 25% and 75%, is then used down here for 713 and multiplied by 29,000 though, because basically they got 20,000 at their own cost for service 2, plus they had 9,000 of service 1 allocated to them, so allocating 29,000 based on a 25%, 75% to production 1 and production 2, and that gives me new grand totals of 117, 750, and 182, 250. So this method is just a little bit more detailed, the step method is, than the direct method. And then you can see here for 714, the answer is that the costs do not change. Okay, the next one that we should look at is 7-28, which is just right here. And let me get to the top of the page here. And for this one, we've got a life insurance company that has 2 service departments, actuarial and premium rating, and 2 production departments, advertising and sales. The distribution of each service department's efforts is to the others as follows. You can see what they are between actuarial and premium to each other, and advertising and sales. So the direct operating cost of each department is as follows, and they give us the data. Then it says to split this out between the 2 methods using the allocating based on the direct method and then the step method. And so the direct method, let me get the whole thing on the screen here. I'm going too far. So the direct method is the first one, and it says that net service provided to production departments, advertising and sales for actuarial is 20, advertising department share is 50, and the sales department share is 50, and the net service provided to production, you can see what those are, 80 and then 25 and 75, and the formulas are right here to calculate each one of those two. You can basically say if we go 100% minus F9 and F9 being this 80% right here, at least 20%, and then basically 50% is half of the 10% up here. Okay, so you can see how they got the numbers right there with those formulas. So once I've got those splits figured out, and then I have to do the same thing for the premium department. And so I'm basically saying 100% times minus 20% gives me 80, and then I've got to split that between 25% to advertising and 75% to sales. You can see how those numbers turn out. Right there, right there. Then I take advertising and I multiply the advertising cost times their 50% share. So actuarial, 80,000 goes to advertising, and then which is 40,000, and then half of that goes to sales. For premium, then what I do is I take the premium cost department is D15 and I36. You can see it's 15,000 times 25%, and it's 15,000 times 75%. And then for initial production department costs, it's just what they gave us, the D16 and D17, the 60 and the 40, that were simply given to us right here. Okay, so that's how we split those numbers here using the direct method. The step method is a little bit different, of course. For the step method for actuarial, we get D14 times F9. We get, so let me just look at those numbers here for you. And you go back up to here and go the 80% times $80,000, this is 64,000. And then for advertising, we take that number, we do the same thing, D14 times I9, D14 times I9, 80,000 times 10%, and of course we do the same thing for sales, 80,000 times 10%. So now I've taken actuarial and split it between all 3 departments that are left over, and of course that makes premium is a little bit different than before, because we have to have the 64,000 right here plus D15, the 15,000, and then multiply that by the 25% down here. And then we do the same thing for sales. We have to take 64,000 plus the 15,000, then multiply it by 75%. And then we do the same thing, of course. We just add the initial costs, which are already given to us, the 60 and the 40. We add those all up and we get different numbers. So you can see actually with this one, we actually got very different numbers between step and direct between the 2 departments. It did change quite a bit. For the first example, for 711 to 14, it really didn't change that much. And then we are skipping the reciprocal method. We do not have to worry about that. So let's go to 31. And for 31, you can see with 31 what we're doing is, let me get to my notes here, one second. For 31, Tango Company produces joint products, M and a T, from a process. The following information concerns a batch produced in April at a cost of $120,000. So you can see how many units were produced. We had some split off of the joint products, additional costs that were incurred after split off, and then the sales value of each of the products. So the question then becomes how much of the joint cost should be allocated to each joint product using the net realizable value method. And so what they want us to do then, the allocation for net realizable value method is shown below. It says product B has a very small sales value relative to the two other products, and then should it be treated as a byproduct? Possibly, depending on how we take a look at it. But you can see then how we got the numbers. Let me just make sure we get the whole thing on the screen. Yes, we do. And so for product M, what we're doing is we're bringing in the sales value of 160 minus the separable cost of 10. Gives me that net realizable value of 150. The percent of total realizable value then, you can see I'm just basically taking the three products, adding up their total realizable values, which is 300,000, and I'm saying that M is half that. Then for product N, I do the same thing, the sales value of 140 minus the additional cost of 10,000 to get 130, and then 130 is 43.33% of 300,000. Then for product T is 25,000 sales value minus 5,000 additional cost to get down to 20,000 of realizable value. And then I just split that right here by basically saying 20,000 divided by 300,000 is 6.66%. And then I've got the allocated joint cost. So I've got 120,000 worth of joint cost, and I'm going to allocate that based on the net realizable value of each product. So that's basically the joint cost of the 120 to get them up to a split off point. And so that's how I'm going to come up with that allocation. And then for 732, let me get to the top of the page here. And we got Arkansas Corp, and they make liquid chemicals A and B from a joint process. It says if it allocates joint costs on the basis of sales value at split off, processing 5,000 gallons of product A and 1,000 gallons of B to the split off point costs $5,600. The sales value at split off is $2 per gallon for product A and $30 for product B. Product B requires additional processing beyond the split off point at a cost of $2.50 per gallon before it can be sold. And so they give us the information for both of the products A and B, output in gallons, the cost of that, and the sales value at the split off point for A and B, what the different values are, and the separable cost per unit for B of $2.50. So the question is, what is the company's cost to produce 1,000 gallons of product B? And so down here I can just take some information they gave me and say for product A the sales value split off is 10,000. 5,000 gallons times $2. For B it's 30,000, 1,000 times 30. The percent of each then is, of course, 10 divided by 40 is 25%, and then 30 divided by 40 is 75%. Allocated joint costs, 25% of total joint cost of $5,600. That's the number they gave me here. So that's $1,400. 75% of $5,600 is $4,200, plus a separable cost of $2,500, which is 1,000 of B times $250 to get down to $2,500. And so that gives me then the cost for A is $1,400, the cost for B is $6,700. You can just add those up together right there. Okay, so that is the total cost for B.